There you go. You're all very welcome to the Saturday Night Canaries International Old Timers Speaker Meeting. My name is Bruce and I'm your host for this evening. And that's all you're going to hear from me. I'll hand you over to Kathleen, our secretary.
Thanks, Bruce. Welcome to the Canarian International Meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. My name is Kathleen and I am an alcoholic serving as your secretary today. Please join me for a moment silent to remember the still suffering alcoholic both inside and outside of the meeting. And Jason is going to do the preamble, please.
I'm Jason, I'm alcoholic. This is the AA preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of people who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety.
Thank you, Jason. A very warm welcome goes out to any newcomers or anyone returning to Alcoholics Anonymous. And today's speaker is Richard from Sydney. You have 45 minutes or whatever it is you feel you'd like to talk for. And yeah, I'll hand it over to you. So Richard, thanks.
Hey, well, good morning from me and good evening to you. My name's Richard, I'm an alcoholic, and yeah, it's good to be here. I saw that should be long. I was born in England, to what I know now is a dysfunctional family, and 3 brothers, a sister, and we moved to Australia in 1965. Just got something come up. Yeah, so I went through life like most people. Luckily, the whole place was in. I was born in '52, so I'm 72 now, and I've been sober 39 years. I got sober on the 14th of March, 1986. So that's the niceties of it. But I grew up not feeling that I belonged in a family. I always felt that way from the very earliest in my life. I felt, they say, a square peg in a round hole. And grew up. And we came here, I was 13 years of age, here to Australia. So, and I still felt the same here. So I thought it was England, but it wasn't. It was no one else but me. Just the way I was born, didn't fit in. And of course, a drink, 17, and it instantly changed me. It gave me a life where I didn't. I was already a loner. I'd been a loner far, and I came here, and it didn't change. But once I picked that drink, I could do anything. I was a long distance runner, a weightlifter, played with the league, started my own business after doing an apprenticeship, motor mechanic, and found a woman that I fell in love with and got married and to have children. And everything was going really well for probably 6 or 7 years. And then I drank for 17 years altogether. But after 6 or 7 years, I started to lose. I don't know what you say, but I lost the ability to drink as much. Tolerance came down where it had gone sky high. And, I was the life of every party that I would drink like a fish. Most people, it's worth the saying 10 foot tall and bulletproof come. I could do anything in that first 6 years. Once it was over, and I had 2 children by then, more to come. And I had another child before I got married to someone else, So she'd already, she knew she was pregnant under with this other bloke. and I did nothing for my confidence, but drinking, I just drank my way into all sorts of trouble, drank myself out of it sometimes, the early days. But that ability to get myself out of trouble left me with myself. And it was a very slow process, just like it is in sobriety. One day at a time, I lost the ability to drink. And in that losing it, I lost control of my confidence, team, everything that I was before I'd ever picked up a drink came back into life. And that's how it was. That's how I lived. And I wasn't much of a father, a terrible father. I was hardly there. I was always away doing something. I played up a bit, and everything that you could possibly do. And in the end, I turned into a derelict in my own home. That's the right word I was looking for. So I became a Venetian blind detective. Noises in the street. I owed a lot of money. I was 6 months behind in the mortgage of the house we were in, and 6 months behind in my rent where I was working, renting premises, and it just went downhill from there. You wouldn't think it could get much less than that, but it did. The woman that I'd married, and she never told me a lot of her childhood, her past. Only in the last few years that she did talk to me, and other people have told me what happened to her. So we were two sort of damaged souls. That's probably the best way of putting it. But I didn't know any of that then. My background and her background just clashed on the water lot. Just yelling and screaming. But I ended up in a rehab when I was 18, years into my drinking. I'd stopped drinking, but not for any good degrees. I'd stopped because I couldn't drink anymore. I couldn't even smell alcohol without being sick, just spewing up. Tried for probably 9 months or a year, and it just got worse and worse and worse. In the end, I couldn't even take a sip, and I was left with nothing. I was the most empty shell you could possibly imagine, and that's how I ended up. It was a nightmare. Ended up in a rehab. It was run by a people. The place was called St. John of God, and it was run by the Christian Brothers. And went there for three weeks. The advice of my wife's psychiatrist, and went there and did the 3 weeks. All the meetings that they take you to, which was 6 a week, and I never spoke at any of the meetings. I used to hide behind people and duck and weave with them. It was pathetic in a way. There was no way that I was going to tell anyone. And I was like, clamp. I had never even spoken to my wife, and she'd never spoken to me about hers. Nothing really made my personality, and hers as well. So we were a mixed two, and we ended up the week before I went into that rehab company, and we had 4 children, and one was only a baby. Well, two of them, 1 year old and a 3 year old, a 7 year old and an 11 year old, and I had done absolutely nothing with those. I mean, nothing at all. I'd never changed a nappy, and any of the thing a father could do. My part in our marriage was not cram without feeling embarrassed. Rather, my wife walk on the other side of the street and hold my hand. And if it came to an anniversary time or anything like that, I found it really embarrassing to give her a bunch of flowers. I looked both ways before I raced in from the street and virtually threw them at her. And that's just the way I was. I was fully embarrassed by life and the way that, and everything but wore me down, you know. I came out of that. I met a woman in the rehab, and in mine in the back of the bus on our way to a meeting. And the other side of Sydney, it's a long way. So that's not a real good start to sobriety, but that's the way it went. And when I came out 3 weeks later, I had two brothers pick me up. I had three brothers altogether, but only two came to pick me up. It's probably a strange way of putting it, but they took me back to one of my brother's places where I was staying, and that brother actually brought me a beer from the fridge and said, "Hey." And I said, and I looked at this little bottle of beer and thought, you know, I looked at it for about 5 minutes, turned it upside down. The dew was dripping off the side of it. And I just said, "Tom, where do you think I've been for the last 3 weeks?" He said, "Surely you can drink beer." I said, "Well, that's all I drank before." So I ended up putting it in the fridge, but it wasn't, I didn't have it, I didn't open it. It wasn't because of anything altruistic. It was because I'd made arrangements to meet that woman in the heart of Sydney, you know, and I couldn't go there if I had a drink. Well, I'll never get anything anywhere, you know. So I didn't have the drink, and I drove there. I met her at midnight. That was the plan at a motel in Sydney, and I stayed there for 2 days. And there were no mobile phones those days. That was in 1986. No mobile phones, but we did have a phone at home. I phoned up my next door neighbor and asked her, yeah, well, how she was, and she said, "You better come home with suicide again." And she's in a psychiatric, and my kids were there. Around. The neighbors were looking after them, you know. So that was the end of everything there. I went home and I took over, and I didn't know what to do. I had no idea what to do with four children, absolutely none whatsoever. The baby was with one of my neighbors, and the other 3-year-old baby, another neighbor, and only till I just got out of rehab 2 days before. Oh, it was a bit awkward. I still didn't believe I was an alcoholic. I'd stopped drinking, and my life, yeah, my 10 times worse, you know. So how could I possibly be an alcoholic? And I just struggled through. I went back to my business on the Monday. This is all over a weekend, of course. All that just happened. Back to my work and didn't know how to start work. And the two children were at school, and the two neighbors still had the babies for about 2 weeks. And they're my children. So I went to I just went to my neighbors and said, "They're my children, it's it's my job to look after them, you know." And we also, I just looked down at these four children, and I thought, Jesus Christ, what am I going to do? I had nothing in my head. I was an asshole, you know, if used here, but I hadn't done a thing as far as being a good husband or father for many years, and I loved my wife, but we clashed all the time. Oh, that was the beginning of my sobriety. So I didn't do meetings because I couldn't anyway, but I didn't want to anyway. It really didn't matter. I did that for 3 months, and and I looked at my baby who needed a nappy changed, and all of a sudden my next door neighbor was there behind me, and she showed me how to put a nappy on. There were cloth nappies just before the throwaway ones were. And so she showed me how to put a nappy on twice. I did it myself, you know, and that's how I started my sobriety. Looking after four. Couldn't find a childcare centre for them because it's 2 years wait. thought, well, what am I going to do? So I took them to work. I had an office at work that I set up with a TV and a video club player, and played child movies that we had, Bed Knobs and Broomsticks and Dumbo the Elephant, all this sort of stuff. I was doing a terrible. Did it. I did it, and I did that for 3 months. 3 months dry, no meetings. One member of my family told me in that time, and I lost my faith in God. Brought up as a Catholic in England, and wear my head off walking up. I only worked 4 hours a day. I could have gone on a pension, but I didn't want to do that, and because I'd have to sell to get rid of the business, to even think about. Kept it and survived that way, and he killed me. Worst 3 months of my life. The whole year was hard, but that 3 months horrendous. And I came. I don't know what happened. Finally, after 3 months, I couldn't ask for help. Don't know what other people are like, but I can only tell you about me. I could not ask for help. I couldn't accept people saying no. And surprised that I hadn't heard from them since that first day they picked me up from the rehab. My two brothers, but no one. I had a sister, a mother. My father was in a nursing home. He'd had a bad stroke and was on his way out, so to speak. And I managed to get to see him for once in that 3 months. So that was it. Pretty lonely experience. And I thought about suicide. I thought, well, I wonder what it would be like if it went further than that thought. And finally, my youngest brother found me up and said, would you like where that went a very long way away, so we didn't see or we talked on the phone a lot. And my brother phoned up and said, would you like a night off? I didn't want laughing. And I kept repeating, would I like, you know? And in the end, he didn't say a word. I thought he'd actually hung up. But in the end, he said, would, John? And he came round and watched the kids for me. And I was going to go to the pub, have a few drinks. And I thought, at least I used to get some relief drinking. But I didn't. I went. I don't remember the journey. This is a really strange part of my story now. I got in my car. I remember starting my car. I remember reversing out the driveway, and that was the last I remember till I was reverse parking it at a college in Sydney's western suburbs where there was a meeting on. And I'd never been to that meeting, and well, it was just I don't know. I had a list of meetings, so but I don't remember any of the journey. And I had terrible chest pains, like I was having a heart attack. But I've been to the hospital 3 times in 2 weeks with pain, and they couldn't find anything wrong. And I also had the worst headache I've ever had in my life. And I pulled up the car, and I had to find the room, and it was easy because the only room with a light on, being a nighttime. I walked into that meeting. There was 9 people, and they'd already started the meeting. Only just they were reading the preamble, and they stopped, and they all got up. They all looked up, and every single one of them got up and came to me and gave me a hug and a handshake and welcomed me with a smile on the face. Wow, I've never felt like that before. So, I sat down. All speakers. The chairperson said, "Richard, would you like to say a few words?" And I just started speaking. It was you spoke from where you were sitting at that meeting. I'd never in group therapy in any of the meetings at St. John of God. Here I was, and I said, "My name's Richard. I think I'm an alcoholic." And I had a big book, by the way, but I've never opened it. That woman, actually, while I was in St. John of God. So I had a brand new big book, never even opened it. So I knew nothing about Bill Wilson or much about AA, really. And I spoke. I said, "My name's Richard. I think I'm," and something changed in me. And a voice came into my head, and it spoke over my own voice, and it said, "What's happening to me?" And wow, what was that? And I kept speaking, but the relief that I got from speaking the truth did something I didn't know, but it was good. I felt I could have melted with relief. I thought, wow. For me, it didn't have much to do with alcohol. It was alcohol was the biggest symptom of my alcoholism, but I knew I was an alcoholic, and uh, and I didn't know what that voice was, and I never spoke about it to anyone for a very long time. 32 years, I think, before I spoke about that. And went home from that meeting after 2 hours. 2 hours after it finished, I didn't want to go home. I felt so at peace. I felt the best way I can describe how I felt was I felt I'd never felt like in my whole life. And here I was feeling like I was back in my own home at last, my family. And I went home after 2 hours, and I was singing in the car. It was only 8 k's away from where I live, and I got lost. And I got home, and my brother was there waiting for me. We spoke till 4 a.m. and what I had to say. And he said, "Richard," he said, "if you like, I'll come one day every week, and you can go to a meeting." So I did that for 4.5 years. I couldn't wait to the next meeting. I was looking all the time. It gave me so much where I never wanted to miss a meeting. And people looked at me. Knew I could only do one meeting because of and so they sent people around to my house twice a week. Huh? They followed me around the house. Followed me around. The dogs are a bit noisy. Followed me around the house, and I thought, what do these bastards want? And all they wanted was to give me what had been given to them. And I picked up the big book for that. And by the way, when I spoke at that first meeting, the chest pains left me and the headache left me. Well, I haven't had a headache in 39 years. And I've had a triple bypass and didn't have any pains like I had then, you know? So that was only 8 years ago, I had that. So amazing. It's amazing how I don't know how things work sometimes. It's miraculous, that's sure. But I learned how to look after my children. I learned how to change nappies, and I learned how to wash them in the washing machine. And I didn't learn the right way of drying them. Lying in bright sunlight, came out like card, and you clean them up against the back wall. And I thought, couldn't get off, you know. And again, my next door neighbour came in, and we put them in the dryer. And that's what everyone else does, and because they get bleached on the line. So I learned all these small things. She showed me how to pat my daughter's hair. She was the baby, and sometimes I did more than one meeting a week. I took a bassinet and a baby in it, and the 3-year-old, and took them to a meeting now and again when I could do that. Kids with one of the neighbours just in on them, and 11. So I did whatever I could to do as much AA as I could. And I got phone numbers. I spoke to people on the phone before I got to that first meeting. I spoke to one person that had come into St. John of God as a visitor to a meeting there that I had twice a week. He spoke. He was the only one I ever identified with. He said that he only drank beer and he didn't drink in the mornings. I thought, well, that's me. either. Could drink till 4 a.m., but I couldn't start again at 6 away in the world. And off. So I found him up. I had his phone number, and I used to talk to him for hours. 3 months. He put me in touch with some people in Sydney's western suburbs, and I found them up. They weren't there. They were at a meeting. They had someone else looking after their kids, and she was enough. I talked to her every time. They were never home. I didn't meet those people for about 3 years, and so I didn't really meet, apart from the ones that came to my house, which was short time. That wasn't 4 years. My brother and said do that same night every week, but he would come another night, and because of his work commitments. So I added off on another meeting. That's one, and that was one group then. Group. And life went on. So I did that. 3 months dry drunk, into AA, one meeting a week, and loving AA. Absolutely loved it. Didn't have to tell any lies. I had the story of a lifetime, so I didn't have to exaggerate my story. I learned things. My father died when I was 5 months sober, or 2 months fellowship, and I felt lost again. It was the night that when I got the phone call at about 5 a.m. to say that he, it took a lot out of me. I don't know why, because they're off. Now I knew that he was virtually a vegetable. He'd had a terrible stroke, and he'd nursing home here. And luckily I'd seen him 2 weeks before we went to get there, and so he went, and that night I picked up that big book, and I read from the first page to page 100. And so I read Bill's story, and I read how it works, and all the other weird Gnostic, all the early fourth edition, and I was amazed with it. It was fascinating, like they were talking about me, all these people. I didn't read any of the stories yet. I don't belong. And so I read that, and I started. A voice had come into my head when I first went to the meeting. And I thought, wow, that's so close to what happened to Bill Wilson. And that's why I didn't want to speak about it for all those years. I thought people would think I'm just emulating Bill Wilson about it. But I knew my spirit had woken up at that meeting in moment. That's to me, what a spiritual awakening is. It's me, it was my own spirit waking up. I drowned it in alcohol. It took the magic words, the alcoholic, the truth, the honesty. It took that to wake it, and it awoke my life ever since. And so my life continued. And the day when I got that phone call that my father had died, a lot of things happened in that. My two little kids, they were both walking then, and my younger, even the baby was very early, and she was running it. And they were clinging to my legs, and I looked down at them, and I remember thinking, I said it out loud, well, Richard, they're all you've got. You're all they've got. I turned it around in my head, and I said, guess what, Richard? But they're all you've got as well. And suddenly I was the richest man. I was rich beyond my wildest dreams. I had 4 children. I love them. Really love them. And it made me a different person. We're doing the family stuff, and to the beach now and again. On weekends, my wife was in us on and off for 10 years. 7 months the first time, and did get divorced. And she did, when she came home from that rehab, she wasn't she wasn't capable of doing anything. Not after 7 months. She'd become institutionalized. And she was, even though I still lived, I went and lived at my brother's house. He'd moved out and the house was for sale. So he asked me for it. Months I lived there, 2 years while it was old. But I still went to, it wasn't far away again from where I lived with my family. So I was there every morning and there every night to take the school. I did get a childcare centre because I found out that the last two you go and you in, So I was looked after that way. I was offered help from at work, help at home, cleaners coming in, but I didn't want any of that. I didn't want any of that. I did it all myself. After reading that first 4 pages, I felt again like something had changed in me. It was like a 2 parts to a spiritual experience, spiritual awakening. First part in that first meeting I went to, where I spoke, and the second one when my father died. And so I went on. Life became bearable, no more than bearable. I became a real father. Worked as much as I could, and then they all got together, and the measles the first day out. They all got measles, so I couldn't work much. I didn't have a lot of money. In fact, I had nothing. 5. And took the kids to visit their mother every weekend, and every Sunday, and the very first time I went there and taken the children into the yards. There was 90 gardens there, and this is a strange part in my life, not in AA so much, but I sat there in the visitors' room, or the area, dining room probably it's called, where a lot of people would visit on a day. And this chap walked over, sat down opposite me, and said, he just put crossed his arms and looked at me and said, "I'm an extraterrestrial," And I thought, wow, this is amazing. It's this sort of thing that's happened to me all my life. People like him have been attracted to me, and I'm very much like them. I'm not an extraterrestrial. I didn't have any of that. I was strange growing up and a misfit, and I sort of friends that I attracted. But after all that, I did that every weekend, and days I'd take the children places, and I'd take them to a restaurant once every. Already a good cook. One thing that I cook, and meals. All my family came to me after that meeting. It was like it was some sort of telepathy. Came back to me. They knew I was doing my best. They did their best, and they looked after me, family. So that's story up to then. The second part was probably 18 months into sobriety. My ex-wife ended up in an ICU with all the drugs they'd given her. She'd had electric therapy, what they call it, in hospital, and she wasn't full quid, and I didn't. Schizophrenic. She'd been diagnosed with all sorts of schizophrenia. Head telling her to throw the baby against the wall and things like that, and I found out these things. No one would tell me because they thought, which I would have had to have done. But her psychiatrist told me that they were going to let me, and they apologized and said we
Sorry, Richard. Would it be okay if I'm having difficulties here anyway? I'm losing a lot of your words. So can I?
Okay.
That's why if I turn off your video, you should have more bandwidth for
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure thing. Yeah.
Sorry for interrupting. There you go. So we can still hear you.
Okay. Oh, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, sorry about that. I didn't realize. Anyway, where was I? Yeah, she ended up buying. I didn't want her locked up or anything like that because that's what was happening. It was all arranged without my being, but it never happened. She called me and asked to talk to me. She said, "Get through Christmas. It's the second year now, and and little again for another." And so I'm probably being a bit quiet also because there's other people in the house where I am that are asleep, you know. So I don't want to wake my doing so well. But anyway, that's fine. So that's where I went. But in that time, I didn't do a meeting again for 6 weeks, and 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 because of that, I started. And the fact that I'd only been doing one a week anyway, most of the time, uh, they two people from the new group that I was in actually came to see me and said, "Richard, we need a new secretary. Would you like to do it?" And I thought, God, because I hadn't done a meeting for 6 weeks, and I had it in my mind that you know why would you why wouldn't anyone drink with a wife like the one I had? Started to lose the fact that I was an alcoholic, and I didn't have a drink or anything like that. Want to drink? I was fortunate, and but I do remember. I do remember actually sitting at a set of traffic lights with tears running down my cheeks, thinking, I don't even belong in AA. Where do I belong? That was when two men came and saw me at my house. And so I became secretary of a group the week that I did it. Well, again. So, and she survived only just, by the way, she only just survived. In intensive care for quite some time. And she survived. And she got a bit better, never fully recovered. And I part of my story is that obviously I started going out with different women, and that's where I found some of my other problems came up. I fell in love. If a woman smiled, I was in love with her, and it doesn't work like that. Life doesn't work, and I was attracted to people that was than I was. I mean, I could only meet people in AA, so they were in AA, I was in AA, and it's a hodgepodge of emotions, really, and you shouldn't be doing any of that. But they, they had time up, and I had time up, so it wasn't so bad. None of us drank. The great relationships were terrible. Lasted 3 months, almost to the day, and it was like that for the first 11 years of sobriety, and always changing, always changing. My sobriety is always changing. I've been the secretary of that group. I was now secretary of a different group, and I loved it. I loved being the first person there, opening up, getting the hot water running, putting the banners out, chairs up. I'd get there an hour earlier, because I wanted everything set up with half an hour to go before the meeting, and that way I could speak to people, with people, and I had getting their names, where they're from. It was a Sunday night meeting at that time, and you get a lot of visitors on a Sunday night in the Sydney's western suburbs. People from America actually used to come now and again every 6 months. They'd spend 6 weeks and do the meeting there. Other people from Ireland, a lot of people from Ireland, and so it was changing all the time. And so that's what I did. And 11 years sober, I had a person walk in to the meeting, and he said he was asked to speak. I've never seen him in my life at any other meeting, so I was doing plenty of meetings then. And And I've never, and he got up to speak and he said, I'll never forget what he said. He said, my name is whatever. And he said, I don't know about the rest of you people, but I've spent my whole life waiting for the spaceship to come back and take me to the planet I was supposed to go to. And I thought, wow, that's about as close as you can get to the way I felt early in my life. It was fascinating to, and left. And I, 28 years later, I've never seen him since. So maybe the spaceship did come back. Oh, you know, but you get to meet people. I've met people because I listened intently. I would never leave a meeting, even go to the toilet if I had to. I wanted to hear everyone's story. And that's what I saw. That rehabs, I met people, went to rehabs and talked to brand new people, to prisons, and talked to prisoners with a group of people, and then went to rallies, conventions. I went to the Sydney 50th convention in 1995, and people from all walks of life and all parts of the world, and that's what I still do that today, even on Zoom. And I went to an actual face-to-face on Thursday this week, and there was over 100 people, and it was a beautiful meeting. I met people that I haven't seen since COVID started. And, get many now, but I make sure I do lots of meetings in the fellowship, you know. So I don't know where we are for time. Got to watch the time. I've had a great sobriety. I've met people that just. One of the first people I met was in the country way before I moved here, and he told me a story. He told the whole group a story that I've never forgotten to this day. This was in my first year. He got up to speak, and he told the story. He's getting sober, and he was 35 years old when he told this story. That he tried every single thing he could do. He said he talked to his priest, doctor, his priest, a counselor, a psychologist, psychiatrist. He everyone he could, and he couldn't get sober. I even went to Lourdes in France. I immersed myself in the healing water, helping them. And so he went out of that rehab, of that last thing overseas, went to a park and sat with he showed us the park through the window. It was just outside the window. You could oval. He said, I sat on a park bench, head in my hands, and a wino came and sat next to me. He said, a wino came and sat next to me, tapped me on the shoulder and said, why don't you give AA a try? And he just looked up and he pointed to where we were, and then just got up and walked away, you know. And he said, I've never had a drink since. He got 45 years up before he passed away, but he was one of those people that it's a spiritual sort of thing. Look at you, and he said a certain sentence and think, wow, it's just what I needed to hear. It's like he knew what you needed to hear. I've had priests in the meeting where I was secretary. One, we didn't know he was a priest. He wasn't dressed. And he came in late and left early, about 4 or 5 weeks in a row. And finally, someone asked him to speak, would he like to speak? And he went out the front. He said, I'm the priest at this school and this church. He said, I live out the back. Fence, a hole in the fence that you probably don't know about. Toilets that I use in here. Well, they've given me a house. There's any come in here. He said, I have thousands of people go through every week for one thing or another. A lot of them, maybe they want to get to heaven, you know, maybe it'll help them. And he said, I come in here to get out of hell. He said, I'm not an alcoholic. He said, what people have is in the church, you know. And we had two young women come in that meeting also, and another time asking would they mind if they came in? Would we mind if they came in? They were doing a thesis on alcoholism and drug addiction. and they did it for 6 weeks. At the end of 6 weeks, they asked to speak, just to thank us for letting us do that. It wasn't a closed meeting. We were allowed to do that. And they came out and they both actually cried and said what we had almost with to see the recovery and the honesty from people, from the stories they were hearing. So all through my sobriety, I've been able to meet people that have had a story to tell and a plan in life. About years ago, I went to a rally, an Albania rally, and there was a chap there. He's passed away now, so I can mention his name. His name was Charlie. I don't know his last name anyway. He was 101 years of age. 78-year-old daughter walked him out to speak when he was asked to speak. And he said he got sober when he was 50, so he's 51 years sober. And he was a veteran of World War one of the last ones. And he said these words. He said, I can tell you one thing. He said, it's this. He said, every day of my whole sobriety, it's some way or another. Never stops getting better. He died 2 weeks after this, all this. And I found out later in Sydney, they have Sydney Harbour Bridge that most people would know about. They have another massive bridge called the Anzac. Anzac being Australia, New Zealand, and I only found out recently that statue on the left pylon and the one on the right. The one on the right is a New Zealand figure in the First World War. And the one on the left is an Australian one. It's up Bali. So I thought, wow, I didn't know that. So you get to I've done as many meetings as you could possibly do. There's been times in my sobriety that I should have died. I've had a triple bypass. That wasn't one of them. That was pretty. It was good. I needed something done, and I was losing my breath. But after that, post-operative stuff started to affect me. Years ago, I had a triple bypass. It started to affect me in my liver, in my lungs. And all I could do was sit at home here. I closed my business, bought this house in the mountains, and I just did Zoom. I did 8 meetings a day, which is ridiculous, but I got so much out of it. I went to meetings all through America, Ireland, Scotland, and that's where I've come to. And it's 3:50 a.m. I'd better close down now. That's probably as much as I can say, but I've still managed 39 years. My kids are grown up now. I have 9 grandchildren, great grandchild on the way, I think. So thanks for having me, and I'll pass it back to you all. Thank you, Kathleen.
Thank you, Richard. Thanks for your share this evening, and thanks for getting up in the middle of the night and sitting here with us. We've come to the end of the sharing part of this meeting, and Nadia is going to read the promises. Thank you, Nadia.
Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you, Richard, for your amazing share. Thank you. My name is Nadia and I'm an alcoholic. If we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the past. We will comprehend the word serenity and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people, of fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises? We think not. They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them. Thank you for letting me do service.
Thank you, Nadia. And I would like to thank you again this evening, Richard, for coming in the middle of the night and doing service. And I'd like to thank Bruce for hosting, Katrina for timekeeping, Jason for the preamble, Nadia for the promises, and everybody for just being here in general. Reminder that this meeting is on 7 days per week at the same time. We also have a lunchtime meeting every Sunday at 1 p.m. UK time. This is a Step 11 meditation meeting. On Saturday at 6 p.m. we have the Old Timers meeting and an extended share recording for our archives. And on Thursday evenings we have a meeting at 7:30 UK time. We use the same meeting code for all our meetings. Stick around for fellowship after this meeting. If you want to use a breakout room after the meeting, please let the host know. And if Bruce would share the yellow card on the screen, or not, it's okay. Who you see here, what you hear here, when you leave here, please let it stay here. Aha. Chat will be enabled at the closing of this meeting with the Serenity Prayer with the mics turned on. And Richard, if you would like to please lead us out with the Serenity Prayer.
I was muted, yes. To a God of our own understanding, or your understanding, God,
God,
Grant me the
us the
serenity
serenity
to accept the things
we cannot change,
courage to
courage
change
to change the things
things
we
we can,
can,
with the
and
wisdom
wisdom
to
to
know
know
the
the difference.
difference. Keep coming back.
thank you.
Hey, thanks, Richard.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you all for having me. Yeah. It's a bit
Beautiful.
awkward when it's the middle of the night.
Lovely share.
Lovely.
Appreciate the effort. Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.